All right, so today we are on chapter 8, item 8, true purity, washed hands. And I think these two topics that we're going to see today, hopefully we'll be able to complete these two topics, true purity and temptations of sin, are very deep, very complex, and open rooms for a good amount of discussion, of questioning, and hopefully we have a good participation for everyone. Um, so, Radi, doing the reading for us?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so read 8 only and stop, okay?
Okay, okay.
Thanks.
True purity, unwashed hands. Then the Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat." He answered them, "Why do you break the commandment of God for the sake of your tradition? For God commanded, 'Honor your father and your mother,' and 'whoever reviles father or mother must surely die.' But you say, 'If anyone tells his father or his mother, what you would have gained from me is given to God,' he need not honor his father. So for the sake of your tradition, you have made void the word of God. You hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesied of you when he said, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men.' And he called the people to him and said to them, 'Hear and understand. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth. This defiles a person.' Then the disciples came and said to him, 'Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying?' He answered, 'Every plant that my heavenly Father has planted will be rooted up. Let them alone. Let them alone, and they are blind guides. And if the blind let the blind, both will fall into a pit.' But Peter said to him, 'Explain the parable to us.' And he said, 'Are you also still without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is expelled? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. For what of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a person. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile anyone.'" Matthews 15:120. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, for the very beginning, okay, the Pharisees complained to Jesus that the disciples were breaking the tradition of the elders. The first thing to keep in mind and be very clear, that is very clear here, is this is not a complaint in terms of hygiene. This has nothing to do with hygiene.
Right.
It's nothing to do with cleaning up the hand before we eat as we do today and should have done always, purely for hygiene, completely unrelated to religion or religiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
We wash the hands to touch food, so you won't not contaminate the food with our dirty hands, period, okay? This is not it what the Pharisees and the scribes were complaining. They were complaining of a very important symbolic gesture to them, completely associated with religion, totally disregard of hygiene once again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Water, not only Judaism, and of course it passed to Christianity, but in many other cultures and religions and spiritualist doctrines, is a very important element. Is what is called hierophany. Hierophany means a physical manifestation of the holy or the sacred. So water is more than just the most important thing for us, that no life, no water, no life. So much so that the way that NASA seeks for other celestial body that may be able to have life is seeking the presence of water. If there is water, there is a chance that it may have life. If there is no water, as our science of today states, there should not be any life, right? And I'm not talking about spiritism, talking about biology as we understand today. All life should require some kind of water. Okay, so water is indeed something very important. Water is the manifestation of the sacred, of the holy, is the manifestation of both the creation and destruction. And in many cultures, the creation, the earth arises from water, and in many cultures, the civilizations, entire planet, entire worlds are consumed by water. So water is not just a little thing when you're dealing with spirituality. And the wash of the hands for the Jews is something that is called Nitilat Yadain, if I may pronounce right. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it completely wrong. I apologize. Um, there was a ritual that was performed that is started in the Temple of Jerusalem when the priests received the offerings, and if they were going to consume those offerings to eat or to drink, they received oils and wines and stuff. They were supposed to perform this ritual. And after time, this ritual went outside of the temple into the population general. And with that ritual, there is a whole way of washing the hand. There is no, you're supposed to wash first the dominant hand with pouring water twice, and then use the other hand and pouring water twice. And with that, they would say a prayer or a chant, whatever you want to call it, that it said, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us concerning the wash of hands." Now, the big word here is command. According to this reading, God commanded us to wash the concern the wash of hands, right? And of course, command is a very powerful word.
Yeah.
No, you cannot. If someone command you, it has to be someone with authority to command you to begin with, right? And someone with authority that commands you, you must do it.
Mm.
So the complaining from the priests and from the scribes to Christ have some meaning. It was not just trying to create problems here. It was not related to hygiene whatsoever.
Mm.
It was an important ritual for them that they want a clarification for Christ, right? And and of course, Christ having always an opportunity to provide us with moral teachings, tells us, listen, you are complaining that they are breaking one of your commandments,
Mm.
which is basically a man-made commandment, right? An important one, okay? I would imagine that it was created at one point of a necessity of hygiene, and the best way to make people follow things at that time and even today is to say it comes from God. If say that it comes from the priest, that it comes from the doctor, that it comes from the the governor, people will disregard, say, I don't care. Well, it comes from God, then it's a different thing. Now I have to follow. If God commanded that I have to wash my hands, I have to wash my hand. And the rituals, of course, it, rituals derive primarily from the time when you don't have a written language.
Mm.
And the rituals are made in forms of chants, of dances. So it sticks in our memory and we can pass along from generation to generation. This is how rituals are so important. Once you have a written language that can write things down, rituals start to lose its values and persist mostly as a folklore more than anything else. But at one point, to have those rituals of washing their hands and performing this and that was important because having the special songs, the special drums, the special dances, the special color of the clothes sticks to your memory, and then you are able to pass it on from generation to generation to generation. Okay? So having rituals was important. It is perhaps important in some cultures today. So Christ tells them, fine, you have your rituals, man-made rituals, but the hypocrisy here is that we
Mm.
have uh, commandments above that, the ones that comes directly from God, the ones that comes from even from the Ten Commandments of Moses. One of them that I can use as an example is honor your father and your mother. Okay, and if you are able to tell that the statement I'm gonna quote with him, what you'd have gained from me is given to God. If you are able to, if I am able to come to my parents at old age, after they have provided for me my entire life, made a man or a woman out of me, provide me all the conditions to grow up and become a professional, whatever, at the old age, instead of provide to my parents, I say, whatever I was going to give to you, I choose to give to God. And I'm forgiven. I'm good. That's all right. I can let my parents be in need, and I can, as long as I provide to God. That is the hypocrisy here that Jesus is stating. You wanna do your washing your hands, you wanna do your rituals, that's great, that's fine. But there are commands above this that is much more significant and much more important. And you're talking about pleasing God with washing hand, but you neglect to provide even to your parents.
Mm.
This is the biggest hypocrisy that Jesus is referring to.
Mm.
Okay, and that goes along with many other teachings from God, from Jesus himself, right? That's why he says that on the way to the altar, if you have a quarrel with your neighbor, put down your gifts and go you and readjust with your neighbor. Meaning that all your gifts to God from your hands are completely meaningless if you have any kind of hate or anger in your heart. It's completely meaningless. It doesn't mean anything to God. And also goes with more important thing when Jesus teaches that when you feed the hungry, it is me that you are feeding. When you clothe the naked, it is me that you are dressing. Because the true purity is not external. The hypocrisy that Christ refers here is that the ritualistic acts, they are external. They are easily noted by the society, by the priests, okay? And the ones that really pleases God, they're usually silent. They are not out there screaming out loud how good I am. Look at me. I'm giving all this to please God in the temple. I'm bringing the oil, the wines, the fruits, and I'm sure God's going to be very happy with me. But the parents are in necessity at home without proper food, without proper whatever parents need. This is the greatest hypocrisy, and that's what Christ is referring to. Um, important things here. Yeah, so another important lesson here is that Christ is creating to us, bringing his new paradigm, the differentiation of what's truly divine in nature and what is human made. Perhaps important. Washing of the hands is important. With or without the chant, with or without the rituals.
Right.
Okay, but when you put in a scale of pleasing God, so to say, there is no comparison. Follow up on the very true commandment is usually for the other and not for oneself. Right? Honor your father, honor your mother. Is usually outwards. It's for someone else. It's not for yourself. Okay, and usually the commandments of divine nature are this outward action movement towards someone else, not towards ourselves. And with that comes what comes into your mouth, what comes out of your mouth. Another big problem, another ritual, another man-made um, rules or commandments was many things that could be eaten, many things could not be eaten, many things could be eaten with this thing, but not without thing. You know, an example, we should not eat pork, we should not eat meat with cheese, and there is all those rituals that were made that perhaps were necessary when they were created for preventions of epidemic processes, of infections, of any other things, in a time when we could not properly provide proper hygiene to food. There was no the priests were the priests and the law and the doctors and everything else would associate all the things together and try to prevent epidemics and stuff like that, to create a bunch of rules. And again, the best way to make people to follow rules is say that it comes from God. So you can eat pork. Yes, pork could be a very good source of infection because we did not know that the pigs are getting infected from us, and then us giving the infection back to us because we didn't have hygiene for ourselves, and because we didn't have hygiene for ourselves, we infected the animals. Then if the animals' meat get infected, we eat the meat to get infected. So it's easy to prohibit eating pigs than try to teach hygiene when they need to know it themselves. Yes. Okay. But Christ says that you should be more concerned not what comes into our mouth, but comes out of our mouth. and it's easy to understand, right?
Mm.
Because what comes out of our mouth is the true character of our essence. Remember that sentiments comes direct from the answers from the spirit. Sentiment produces thoughts, energy. Thoughts produces words. So in reality, what comes out of my mouth is the come from my essence, I spirit, what I really am. What I really am produces sentiments. Sentiment produces thought. Thought produces words and actions. Right? So our words reflects what we are. And the word defile here, I had to check in the dictionary, so I'll share with you. It means to make foul, to make unclean, to pollute. So the way that we pollute ourselves is not by what comes within us, but is what comes out of us. It's almost a reversal of pollution. We pollute ourselves, we contaminate ourselves with the things that are let out, the words that we choose, even the truth that we use as a knife, as an instrument to hurt people. Very often say, but it's the truth. Well,
Mm.
let's go back to Socrates. Only if it's true, only if it's good, and only if it's useful.
Mm.
Only speak if it's the truth, if it's good, and if it's useful. Very often we have the truth, but the truth is not good at the moment, is not useful at the moment, but you use it as an instrument to hurt, to offend, but it's the truth. It reveals what we are, and that is what contaminates us, not what comes within us.
Mm.
Okay?
Right.
Um, any comments, any questions?
Elmo, what I see here, correct me if I'm wrong, that they concentrated so much about um, the outside and not worried about what comes out, just like you explained. It's amazing what comes out of the person and who the person is. Not so much the outside exterior, like you explained, the washing of hands. Uh, Surely that is hygienically important, especially at that time. The Last Supper, you see them cleaning their hands. Of course, that's important. But what they missed is that it's not the outside, it's the inside, who you really are. What are you doing, and how you treat others, as all Christ has come and explained it to us. But this this particular one is so clear and so precise that it boggles the mind to think that, you know, the washing of hands is, this is what you're teaching, surely, but what about the person itself? Are you kind to another? Are you love each other? All these parables that are so important, kind of overlooked. I guess, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, going a little bit ahead, it will be mentioned ahead. Um, it's
Mhm.
not really they, it's us, right?
Yeah,
Um,
all of us, absolutely.
yeah, it's especially all the three Abrahamic religions, full of rituals,
Mhm.
of chants, of things, of very pretty, and we pay more attention to them than to the true meaning, to the true moral significance of the rituals itself. Okay, and we do the ones that is easiest to us. Okay, the external things are easy to pay to pick
So,
up an apple and put on an altar. It's pretty easy
mm,
to to try to wash ourselves from our selfishness to our pride is extremely difficult. Okay, and that's what Christ is bringing, is trying to bring to us here. That pay attention to things that are really meaningful.
Yeah.
Okay, there are things that really makes, that purify them, the spirit, that brings purity to the spirit, purity to the spirit.
Mhm.
The washing of the hands is very nice, very good. You know, you're gonna. It's like Christ says, you wash the outside of the cup, but the inside is completely dirty. The inside is more important. If the outside is important too, yeah, fine. But the inside is what is more important, is what is eternal, is what will bring everlasting happiness to us eventually.
Yes.
And again, it was the Pharisees, it was the Jewish people. Christ was Jewish, lived as Jewish, died as Jewish, did not come to here to create Christianity. So, but it's not the teachings, the reasons to us is not in reference of the Pharisees, in reference to us. To us, we are doing this. Okay, the passage you mentioned, no, say the Jews neglected the true commandments. And can we raise the word Jews over there and says, we are neglecting the true commandments. We are more concerned and show off our financial power in the temples and try to get political or any kind of gangs showing off our how you walk with a Bible underneath our arms and walking, kicking the dogs and promote all kinds of injustice and violence out there. It's we now, not only the Jews, it's all of us. So I'd like to raise the Jews over there. We will not, of course, but think that the Jews is a representative of us today.
Right. Thank you, Elmo. That was great. Thank you. Okay, so we continue on number 9.
Please.
Okay. While Jesus was speaking, a Pharisee asked him to dine with him. So he went in and reclined at the table. The Pharisee was astonished to see that he did not first wash before dinner. And the Lord said to him, "Now you Pharisees clean the outside of the cup and of the dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You fools, did not he who made the outside make the inside also?" Luke.
Okay, so basically you already covered that,
Yeah, said.
that we pay great attention to the outside of the cup, we take great attention to the external rituals, and we don't pay attention to the true moral values of the teachings from the commandments. That we are more concerned with the physical than with the spiritual, that everlasting.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, so we'll continue number 10. If there's any questions or okay. The Jews had neglected the true commandments of God to become attached to the practice of regulations established by humans, whose rigid observers turned into matters of conscience. The very simple background of God's commandments had eventually disappeared under the complication of the form. Since it was easier to observe outward acts than to transform oneself morally by washing their hands instead of cleansing their hearts, humans deceived themselves and believed to be in good terms with God as they conformed to these practices while remaining unchanged, for they were taught that God asks nothing else from them. This is why the prophet said, "In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men."
Thanks.
Okay.
So here again, as I said before, the word Jews can be replaced by us at this point, right? Um, that we kind of neglect the true commandments of God to become attached to the practice of regulation established by humans, whose rigid observers turn into matters of conscience. It's, I think the critic here goes a little bit above ours now and is a good reference of the leadership of the religious institutions who create or perpetuated the the external rituals with such a strong iron fist gives so much value to those external rituals, this external demonstration of our religiosity, of our commitment, more to the religions than to God itself, if you can understand what I'm saying. More to the institution itself than to God itself. Because a person who is really to God would never pay more attention to I am a Catholic, I am a Protestant, I am Jewish, I am Muslim. That becomes secondary to I am son of God. That should be the first thing. And I think that this reference of of that's what it's saying over here, rigid observers turn into manners of conscience, that they make the external rituals even more significant than the true things that is in our conscience, which the divine laws imprinted. And we have been kind of brainwashed to give more value to those things.
Mm.
So, and as long as I obey those rituals, as long as I don't know, I give 10% of my incomes to that temple, to that church, to that whatever. As long as I bring the gifts to put in the altar, as long as I pay for the baptism, as long as I pay for the first communion and the second communion and the third communion and whatever communions they have, as long as I do those things, I'm good with God.
Mm.
Now I'm free to do whatever I want. No, and I think this lesson is goes a little bit to the leadership of those institutions, religious institutions. I think they carry perhaps a greater deal of responsibilities for having led many of us into that direction. And so some things that once we got in within us, it's hard to get rid of it. It's right to free ourselves from those things. But we are also responsible because we also have free will, we also have intelligence. God did not provide free will and intelligence only for those leaders. We made a choice to follow. It sounds harsh, but indeed it is a choice that we made to follow. And we are paying a price for to have not properly used our intelligence and our free will. But those who led us into that direction, if indeed they did, are responsible for making the interest of the churches and the temples and whatever above the interests of God and have taught us to behave in that manner. We are They are more responsible than we are at this point, not taking away our own responsibilities in any way. Again, we have as much intelligence as they do. We have as much free will as they do, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And again, I have to make a point. It's true, especially for all three Abrahamic religions.
Mm. Okay, continue.
Sure.
So it was with the moral tenets of Christ, which ended up being relegated to a secondary rank, meaning that many Christians, like the ancient Jews, believe their salvation is more assured by outward practices than by those of a moral nature. It is to these additions made by humans to God's law that Jesus alludes when he says, every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be rooted out, will be rooted up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We are under a law of progress, regardless of how fast, how slow. We are all moving towards some kind of perfection. For now, we have man-made laws. Some authorities makes laws. Some authorities in the civil world, that's civil laws. Authorities in the religious world make religious laws. They are a reflection of us, where do we stand, okay? And let's assume that all those laws are meant with the absolutely best intention to propel us forward.
Mhm.
Let's even go in there that there are rules and commandments made with the intention of provide uh, richness to those institutions. Let me forget about that for now. Okay, those commandments, man-made, are definitely imperfect, and they are just as good as we are, and they're just as bad as we are. As we mature, as we evolve, as we progress, we will be able to create better commandments, better rules. And again, I'm talking about good intention, not about crooks over there, create authorities creating commandments and rules to benefit themselves. Um, Come with the idea that all of them are acting with good faith for the betterment of us. Okay. As we mature, as we progress, we're going to revise those laws, those commandments, and we're going to upgrade them as we evolve. And as we go in this process of perfecting ourselves and perfecting our laws, we are going to uproot the ones that you recognize does not do what it proposed to do, that was to make us better. Okay. Or perhaps we have got to a level that you no longer need that law anymore. Okay, again, laws are meant to make us do or prevent us from doing something, right? Against them, if you have a law that prohibits you from doing something, it's because you are doing that thing. When Moses prohibited us from talking with spirits, it's because we're talking to spirits. Otherwise, there was no need to make that rule, right? If the laws that says that you cannot steal, is because unfortunately we do it. The day that you mature ourselves as the human race and you do not steal anymore, this rule loses value and becomes uprooted naturally until we come to a point in which we will not need any more laws and rules anymore because our rules and laws, because we have got to understand all the rules or laws that we need are already there. A divine laws is already there in our conscience. So you're not going to have anymore. And everything will be uprooted. As of now, we have a bunch of little things over there. Again, just an example. Do not eat pork. Yes, at one point, we didn't understand hygiene. We didn't understand means of infections. We didn't understand how you must be hygiene towards ourselves to prevent passing infections to animals. It makes complete sense. And in you crossing the desert with no means of anything, you have to prevent epidemic of disease. It was important throughout that time. Today it's not applicable anymore. We have matured, we have understood means of infection. We have means of protecting ourselves from those from vectors infectious. So much so that the CDC today says you don't have to overcook pork anymore. You can eat it medium and it's safe. At one point, you could not eat it at all, and then at one point, you have to kick it to cook it to death. It's almost like killing the animal twice. Now you don't have to do that anymore. We are progressing, so that law becomes obsolete. People remain it out of ritual, out of inability to adjust the religion, the religiosity with science. If you don't adjust the religions with science, the intellectual development, eventually they will die off because we progress intellectual point that we cannot take this nonsense anymore. If today science proves evolution, but you insist that it does not exist, those things will be eventually uprooted because we mature, because we grow up, and those things that was created when we were still infants no longer fits our more intellectual progress any longer, and they will die up. They'll be uprooted. So it's just a natural process of moral intellectual progress that we are going through. All those things will become uprooted unless they are true laws, true divine laws. And when I say that, I'm not only the moral, but all of them. As we mature, our laws, our rules or commandments approximates to the true divine laws until eventually we understand them, so you don't need any more of our laws, of our rules, and everything else becomes uprooted. Does it make sense?
Yes. Yes. Mhm. Okay, we continue then.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of religion is to lead humans to God, or rather, humans reach God only when they become perfect. Therefore, any religion that fails to make humans better does not reach the goal. A religion on which we believe we can rely to do evil is either false or distorted in principle. This is the result of all those in which form prevails over substance. The belief in the effectiveness of outward signs is null. If it does not prevent people from committing slandering and harming their fellow human beings, it can create superstitious, hypocritical, or fanatical persons, but it does not make good individuals. Therefore, it is not enough for one to have the outward appearance or purity. Above all, it must exist. inside one's heart.
Okay, so the word religion on its semantic meaning means to religare, to reconnect the divinity, to return to God. And if we expand that semantic definition is to return to God's laws imprinted in our conscience. If you are able to return to what is in our conscience, the divine laws, then religion fulfills its true goal. If it makes us better, if it prevents us from acting in our still animal instinct, if it prevents us to act in our vices and transform them into virtues, then religion is good. But if religion is only or limits to create rituals, to create dogmas, it's more likely to create fanaticism and radicalism and brings us rather away from what's truly in our conscience, bring us away from God, instead of religare, reconnect us to God. So a true religion is one that elevates the humankind morally, that brings us closer and closer to divine laws imprinted in our conscience, to make us act in accordance with those laws. If it chooses to go in the exercise of external rituals, it it has the potential to create divisions, to create radicalism, to create fanaticism. And we can see that throughout history, repeated so many times that that's what has happened. Good?
It's good. Okay. So temptations to sin. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Number 11. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come. But woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. Wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off, and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone would hang about his neck, and that he would drown in the depth of the sea. And if thy eye offend thee, plug it out and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life 1 eye, rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell fire. Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. And if thy right eye offend thee, plug it out and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not thy whole body shall be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This, I like What I really like about this passage is to ask those who read the Bible literally and applies it in a very literal sense. The one who says dinosaur never existed because it's not mentioned in the Bible.
Mm.
That I want to see the application, the literal application of this passage of Christ. I want to see if there would be anyone left with eyes and with hands and with feet. If any one of us would be able to keep our eyes, our hands, and our feet. So, of course, no one will ever apply this passage of Christ, this teaching of Christ in a literal sense. No one's going to be unplugging their own eyes and cut their own hands because it's painful. But when it's the application of the teachings of the Bible, the First and the Second Testament does not really hurt us, we are all literal about it. I want to see application of this passage in a literal sense. No one would be left with an eye or a hand in this world. Now comes the word sin. What does it mean? What is sin? To sin for the Greek, for semantic meaning, means to miss the target, right? So Christ is telling us if there's anything, what is your target? First of all, what is your target? What are you aiming at? So let's assume that you aim, your target is to live in accordance to the divine laws imprinted in our conscience. If our target, what we aiming at, is to be a truly good citizen, a good father, a good mother, a good spouse, to be generous, to be charitable, all those good things that Christ came to teach us. If that's it's our mean, it's our aim, is our target, to sin is to deviate from that. Is I'm trying to be good, but end up being bad. I'm trying to be faithful, but end up being unfaithful. I, I seek to be a good father, but I failed in doing so. What Christ is saying is, look at yourself. Look what leads you to stray from that goal, to that objective, and end up missing the target. Eliminate those things from your life. What is it that leads you? You seek to be faithful, but you're always being unfaithful. As much as your target is to be faithful. Your target is to provide for the poor to the best of your financial ability. But you keep missing that target. What is it within you that doesn't allow you to hit the bullseye? What makes you deviate from that objective and sin, meaning miss the target? Seek to eliminate it. I can be more charitable because I'm still extremely selfish. Try to eliminate selfishness. Do your best to eliminate that from you. I keep being unfaithful to my wife because physicality becomes more important than morality to me. Tend to be more spiritual than physical, right? And know those things. So for Christ to explain things to them, he used to use sometimes very hard words, some very hard examples, and he used something. If your hands is the object of your sins, cut it off. If your eyes is the object of your sins, is what leads you to sin, pluck them out of your face. It's better to have a deformed body than end up in hell. And he also uses the fires of hell, the expression that he uses. That we know that everything here is totally allegoric. That Christ was using very strong allegoric images to make his point. But in reality, that's what it is. What leads you to to miss the target? When your target is to be good, you end up being bad. When your target is to be generous, and you end up kicking the dog. What is it? Reveal yourself. What leads you to go against what you really want to do? Eliminate those things. That is true. That is the meaning of this passage. Now, I want to see those who read things literally and apply them literally. I want to see they apply this literally as well. It would be nice to see a bunch of people without hands and without eyes around us. Question, comments? All right, let's move on.
Okay, number 12. Okay. In its common acceptation, scandal denotes any action which shocks morals or decorum in an all of it matter. The scandal is not in the action itself, but in the impact it can have. The word scandal always implies the idea of some striking effect. Many people are content to avoid scandal because their pride will suffer and their standing in society will be diminished. As long as their turpitudes are ignored, that is enough for them, and their conscience is at rest. They are, according to the words of Jesus, like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanliness. Matthew. In the gospel, the sense of the word scandal, so frequently used, is much broader, which is why we do not understand its meaning in some cases. It is no longer just what hurts the conscience of others, but rather all that is a result of human vices and imperfections. Any bad reaction from individual to individual, with or without repercussions. The scandal in this case is the effective result of a moral evil.
Okay, so now I have a serious problem with this, but I don't want to go into that. Read for me footnote 28. I can read it. So footnote 28, it's the translation's note. Scandal, scandale in French, is the word used by Kardec.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was muted. I muted myself before.
That's good. That's okay. No problem.
Okay, the note. Scandal, in French is the word used by Allan Kardec, quoting the French Bible in the original, which is replaced by temptation to sin or by offense throughout the English Standard Version and the authorized King James Version as used herein.
Okay. So this to me is when Americanism overpowers Spiritism.
Oh.
Because it makes absolutely no sense that Ident Wells speaks of scandal, and at 11 they take the word scandal out. For whatever reason, it's beyond me. So now you read item 11, that is not the word scandal at all. And then comes item 12 that comes to explain why, or why Kardec used the word scandal when the word scandal is not in item 11.
Mm.
Okay, so again, it's Americanism overpowering Spiritism. Can't understand that at all. But in the previous, the original, as it says here, Kardec used the word scandal. The Portuguese used the word scandal, and the previous edition used the word scandal, and this one omits the word scandal when when what most important should be used. But never mind. Um, I lost my point here. It's just drives me nuts, this thing. Um, the word scandal here that was used by Kardec and was used up to now always the word scandal. Very often it's used in our society when it becomes noticed by the public, when it becomes visible, when people are commenting and talking about it, then there's a scandal, right?
Yeah.
And but Jesus used the word scandal many times, just as a meaning beyond the scandal, the one that it's publicized, that is externalized in everybody's sense, as as just a word that when we go outside of the moral, ethical, proper conduct, it's a scandal. Every time that we do something that's a result of our moral problems, of moral deviations, of a moral evil that's it says here in the word. So every time there's the word offense when we read 11 things over here, the original says scandal, and then this 12 makes sense for us to read and talk about it. Okay, and very often we are concerned with our moral deviations, with when our actions expresses our ignorance, when it becomes public, when people see it, when people talk about it. But when it's in secret, we don't really care much about it. And that's what the topic of the discussion here now. That when Christ is telling us, regardless of its becoming public, become if the people outside become aware of it, even the people in your own household becomes aware of it. Any scandal is any scandal every time that you go outside of the moral, proper, ethical behavior according to the laws imprisoned in our conscience. So if you read up the passage 11, every time there is the word offense or sin, it would be a word scandal. Then this passage, this item 12, would be very significant. It loses significance to me when the word was taken out on item 11. Okay, so basically everything that is a sin is any scandal, and everything that causes a scandal should be avoided. Now, regardless if those things, if those scandals becomes public, if anyone had seen it, or it becomes hidden and only you know of it, is it still a scandal? Is it still a deviation of moral values? Okay. So it says right here in the gospel, the sense of the word scandal so frequently used is much broader, which is why we do not understand its meaning in some cases. It's no longer just what hurts the conscience of others, being external, being outside, but rather all that is the result of human vices and imperfections. Any bad reaction from individual to individual, with or without repercussion. The scandal in this case is the effective result of a moral evil.
Mm.
So to sin is to sin regardless. It's not only if anybody saw it. The scandal is a scandal in its origin for what comes from us, from our sentiments. Again, sentiments produces thoughts, thoughts produce words, thoughts produce actions. So our actions reflect us in our essence,
Mm.
and the scandal originates from the essence, regardless of being publicized or not. Okay?
Yeah. Mm. Okay.
Question, comments?
Okay. So we're at 13.
Yep.
It, it is necessary that scandals, temptations to sin, offenses come, said Jesus, because humans, being imperfect on earth, are inclined to do evil, and bad trees give bad fruit. Therefore, one should understand by these words that evil is a consequence of human imperfections, and not that humans have an obligation to do it.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think I don't know, this is perhaps one of the most important and confusing topic in spiritism when you don't really understand the objectives of reincarnation that is meant to purify us, not to punish us, not to make us pay for the mistakes of the past, but an opportunity for us to learn. It it is difficult for us to understand, and especially when Christ says, "All into the world because of offenses, because of scandals, for it must for it must needs to be the offenses come, but all to that man to whom the offense cometh." It seems like Christ says that we need the scandals, we need the offenses, we need the behaviors that are contrary to God's teachings, to God's laws. That, in other words, we need the murderers, we need the wars, we need the pandemics, you need the, no, let me stop here.
Mm.
Okay? And that's not it. The pandemics, the injustices, the crimes, the slavery, the murderers, the drug addictions is consequences of our nature. And why is it really needed? Is it needed in a sense that we are here to learn, and we are the students and the professors ourselves. I'm gonna use an example that I heard when I was reading through this and studying through this that is very interesting. I'm gonna make the differentiation to make it makes more sense for us. So in a subway, relatively full, some seats, not a time of pandemic, okay? Forget the 6 feet apart, not a time of pandemic, okay? A young man sits and of course spread his legs and the knees was about, at 345, right? Well, as wide as it can go, and puts his backpack next to him, and basically occupying the space for two, easily for two. Comes a lady, an old lady, sees the space that she could fit there easily, gives a sign, eye signal to that person, who sees the eye signal and closes his eyes, pretend to be sleeping. Young, the lady don't do anything. Come the next station. Comes in a 6'5" guy, 300 pounds of pure muscle.
Oh,
He
wow.
smack his knees, says make room, and
Uh-huh.
that guy just go to the little corner and make room for three now. Sits, and that guy goes and sits over there.
Mhm. Wow.
That guy, in his ignorance of hitting that guy so hard on the knee, was a teacher,
Yeah.
provided a lesson that hopefully that person learned or not learned. In the same way, you should have ethical moral behaviors. You should have consideration to others. And he did not need to get hit in the knee that hard, did not need to be embarrassed in a full subway. I made a choice. If that's what is going to teach you a lesson, that's what it is. And is it that sense that the disconduct are needed amongst us? Because our nature. Now that old lady, she could not provide that lesson because she's docile. She's above that. But that guy who comes in pure muscle is the teacher that the individual needed. Is the teacher providing him. The whole subway is staying on the top by the MTA. No, be nice, offer your seat, and do not spread your knees. No, do not. No, the backpacks does not need to sit. Put it on your lap. Make room for others to sit. But you ignore all that until someone comes and smack us on the knee with all force to teach us a lesson. It is in that sense that Christ means that the scandal is needed.
Mm.
Is needed because we need lessons, and we need those who provide us the lessons. No, no. The big guy, 6'5", was his guardian angel, his protecting spirit, did not say in his ears, go and smack that guy's knees to teach him a lesson.
Yeah.
No, it would not do that. If anything else, was the guardian angel of the guy who was with the leg spread who told the big guy to do so. Hey, my bud over here is not listening to me. Can you give me help here?
Mm.
What I mean is that is in the laws, not that tells us to go and commit an offense. That is not that tells us to go and commit any scandal. But it is in our nature, is a consequence, it's not a cause. And since Jesus and all the elevated spirits understanding our nature, understanding knows of our ignorance, placing us in an environment where we are very likely to be exposed to those teachers. That is what then that this scandal is needed.
Mm.
Is that understood?
Yes, very well.
Is anybody going to react to that? Because when you're dealing with the reincarnation, especially when When Christ says you live by the sword, you die by the sword, it gives the impression that, you know, if today I kill somebody with a shotgun, I'll come back to the next incarnation, and that guy will shoot me with whatever also, and that's not it. That's not it. It's not an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Mm.
It is an opportunity to learn valuable lessons. And we are the students and we are the teachers ourselves.
So, Elmo, could we say that what we're going through now with this pandemic is a scandal?
Everything that you're going through now
It is.
is learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at this pandemic so many different
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
The lessons are there in so many different ways.
Yeah.
They're going to value so many things that you devalued, from high level of politics to the ourselves on the street. What are we doing? How are we treating ourselves? How are we protecting ourselves? How much value do we give to our own physical instrument? How much value we give to our own environment that allows the introduction of viruses that belongs into a different species now is being introduced to us because we're destroying those environments, and those species are in, coming to us because you are invading their territory. It's so many things to learn, so many lessons to learn. Are we learning the lessons? And if you learn, what are we going to do about it? But again, if you believe that God is all over justice and everything comes from God is good, there is valuable lessons to be learned here.
Yeah.
When is enough to destroy the environment and bring what should stay out there into our be a part of our species right now. Just so many things, so many lessons to learn here. Question is, are we learning the lessons? And if we do lessons, do we have what it takes to apply them?
Mm-hmm.
And the more important question, for how long is going to be necessary this kind of scandals? How many more pandemics and injustices are we going to have to witness? How many more black people going to have to die at the police hands before? How many more buildings going to have to be destroyed because of injustice before we learn the lessons? It's right now we are going to so many valuable lessons. The question is, are we learning? And if we are learning, are we applying what we learn?
Yes.
But I think this topic, identity, is extremely important.
Yeah.
Explain over here that no, this count is not necessary in the sense that God or the good spirits are sent people over here to promote the scandals, to create the organized mafia or the gangs so we can learn the valuable lessons. No, it is in our nature that we do those things. And it is our responsibility to undo those things. That we are the teachers and we are the students ourselves.
Mm.
Elmo, just to add, the guy on the subway, he had the opportunity with the older woman. It was a subtle learning. He did not do it. He didn't accept that. So it took something a little bit greater for him to really get the message. And sometimes we're like that. It just takes over and over to get the lesson. And eventually we will. We have to persevere and we have to get it, but it does take sometimes more than once, twice, three times, unfortunately. So
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Educated through love and re-educated through pain. You're absolutely right. There was opportunity. I communication would be sufficient for the people to understand. Oh, let me make room for this person to sit. Didn't work. Get somebody and smack your knee. And if you'd react to the smack of the knee, probably the big guy would smack you somewhere else in your face, whatever.
Yeah.
Create even a greater problem. And you're absolutely right. If whatever it takes for us to learn a valuable lesson. But yeah, first we are educated through love and re-educated through pain.
Okay, so we continue on 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Scandals have to happen because humans who are in atonement on earth punish themselves by being brought into contact with their vices, of which they are the first victims, and whose disadvantages they eventually understand. When they get tired of suffering from evil, they will seek the remedy in good. Their reaction to these vices serves both as punishment for some and trial for others. This is how God brings out good from evil, and humans themselves are able to benefit even from bad and objectable things.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So I think we pretty much covered this part. But the word to purify means that whatever is there is not pure and has to be decanted, so to say, right? It has to be filtered out, right? And if I get a jar of muddy water and I want to purify it to make it drinkable, I have to use a device, something to purify that water, to remove the mud, to remove the particles of that water to make it drinkable, right?
Mhm.
And very often the filter, the the instruments that we choose to use to purify ourselves are the scandals, are the offenses. Again, a consequence of our nature, not a cause. It said it takes no two to tango with if I try to offend you with malicious word, you have basically two choices: to counter-react in the same manner, lower yourself the same level of ignorance of mine, or stay above me and say, I'm not going there. And if you're really good, you make a prayer for me. If I don't learn this way, as the character said, eventually I will offend someone who will not like it and will react and will offend back verbally the same way, and things may escalate into a fist fight. Because now I met a professor to teach me a lesson. And perhaps I may be also a professor for that guy who is just as ignorant as I am, and we learn together. That having both of us with uh, raccoon eyes for a week, it's not the best way to live a life. Because regardless who won or who lost that fight, well, we both suffer from it. We both lose. We are both carrying pain in our faces from punching each other. Perhaps eventually you will learn that putting huge walls in front of our house to protect the poor guy who breaking in to steal my goodness is not the answer. The answer is to provide education and the minimum necessary for those individuals to have some dignity of life, so they don't have to come and break into my house and steal my goods. Once I learn that lesson, then I don't need walls. Then I'll make my neighbor as good as I am, providing for my neighbor what my neighbor needs to stop breaking into my house. Perhaps I'll provide education when I'm not getting into drug addiction, instead of criticizing and create a wall around my house. Perhaps I will learn that the teachers of God, of Christ is not that nice thing for us to like and put on the wall, but it's to live according to that. And if you do it, then you don't need walls. Then you don't even need lawyers and judges anymore.
Okay.
12:30, Almo. We're going to continue, or
No, can stop.
Okay.
I think there's so much to talk about this that to rush to the end, it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. It's a very long topic. It's a very powerful topic. It's a very important to talk topic.
Yeah. So just a couple of announcements here. Next Sunday we'll be doing On the Way to the Light. We'll be studying On the Way to the Light, and starting next Sunday we'll have the 22nd Spiritist Week of New York, with a series of lectures every day, most of them in Portuguese, but a couple of them in English. You will find information on the email that we send weekly. If you're not in our email list, please subscribe to it. Send me an email or subscribe through our website. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay. Carrie, would like to make the final prayer for us?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elmo.
Thank you.
Infinite Creator, all goodness and grace, we are grateful to be together today to receive the blessings and the teachings and the commentaries of our chapter, Blessed Are the Pure of Heart. We are grateful for these lessons, knowing that we are evolving, that we are moving forward, that eventually we will reach that perfection within. We are grateful to be together, and we are thankful for our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the protector spirits who are with us now. They are guiding us, inspiring us, providing the courage and the continuation of our faith to go forward. We are grateful that they are with us as we do our part. We pray that we can continue with the blessings, that we can learn the difference between true purity, which is the spiritual version, versus the man-made laws. We know that we're aspiring to the greater goodness, to the heights of the true teachings of Spiritism. May we continue to be blessed to receive the love and light of Christ within us, that we may also share this knowledge, this goodness, this light within with our family, friends, our co-workers, and with others who we meet along the way. We are grateful for our continued studies at SGNY through the vehicle of Zoom and the continuation of these studies, that we are unifying our thoughts, that we are raising our consciousness, that we are bringing the good to many people. We pray for those who are in need, who may be suffering in the spiritual world as well as the physical world. We know that there are many challenges, but we know that this time is the unraveling of the imperfect and the perfections that we need to establish. May we shift our vices into virtues, and we know that we can ask for assistance as we do our part. We humbly close now and ask to continue with our prayers, with our studies, and our mindfulness throughout the week. May we receive the love and light of Christ within, and may we go forth now as beacons of light. Go forth now in peace. So be it.